It started with a scream. Not the kind of scream you hear from a child playing in the street. Not even the kind of scream that escapes when someone sees a cockroach run across their feet. This scream was raw, deep, and broken. It tore through the still air of the mansion like shattered glass. "Get out of my house!" Amelia's voice thundered. Her hair was wild, her nightgown torn, and her bare feet bled from stepping on broken glass. She was standing in the middle of the grand living room, her father's chandelier shaking above her, while she hurled one of the heavy flower vases straight at the wall. The servants watched from a distance, trembling. The driver, kISS, stood at the door, his fists clenched but his face unreadable. To the neighbors peeping through the tall gates, Amelia looked like a madwoman. Her screams echoed, her eyes darted around like she was fighting invisible shadows, and her voice cracked as she shouted words that made no sense to them. "She has gone mad," one of the maids whispered under her breath. "She lost her mind after her father died," another replied. But kISS's eyes told a different story. Because he knew what no one else dared to believe. Amelia wasn't mad. Not at all. If only they knew the reason for her madness, they would not only pity her, they would fear the truth that drove her to the edge. Welcome to this channel. If this is your first time, please kindly subscribe to watch our amazing stories. Just weeks before this night, Amelia's life had seemed perfect. She was the only daughter of Chief Okafor, a man respected across the city for his wealth, wisdom, and generosity. After his death, his vast empire, companies, lands, and estates, rested squarely on Amelia's shoulders. But Amelia was not alone. She had a husband. A man everyone called charming. A man the newspapers described as the husband every woman dreamed of having. His name was Richard. Richard had a smile that could melt stone, words that flowed like honey, and a face that made even men respect him. To outsiders, he was perfect. But to Amelia, something about his touch had grown colder. Still, she ignored the warnings in her heart. After all, love was blind, wasn't it? One night, Amelia woke up thirsty. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that pressed too hard on your chest. She padded down the stairs, barefoot, when she heard a faint whisper from her husband's office. She stopped. The door was slightly open. Light spilled out, and so did the sound of Richard's voice. He was on the phone. His tone was sharp, nothing like the sweet, charming man everyone knew. "Yes, it will be done soon," Richard hissed. "Her father's empire will be mine. She won't even see it coming. The fool still trusts me." Amelia's heart stopped. She stumbled back, her throat tight. For a moment, she thought maybe she had imagined it. But then she heard it again. "If she resists, we'll get rid of her. Quietly. No one will suspect a thing." Her hand flew to her mouth to stop a gasp. Her perfect husband. The man she thought loved her. He wanted her dead. Amelia didn't sleep that night. Her mind raced like a storm. She couldn't tell anyone, who would believe her? The staff adored Richard, the world adored him, and even the board of her father's company saw him as their new shining leader. But there was one person who noticed her trembling hands the next morning. kISS. The driver who had served her father faithfully for years. "Madam," he said gently as he helped her into the car, "your eyes, they tell a story you're not speaking." Amelia stared at him, her lips trembling. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to scream out the truth. But fear choked her. What if Richard found out she knew? What if kISS told the wrong person? So she said nothing. But kISS was no fool. He had seen shadows move where others saw light. Days later, Amelia started to act differently. She avoided Richard's touch. She flinched at his smile. She locked her room at night and sometimes whispered prayers with tears rolling down her cheeks. And when the weight became too much, she snapped. That was the night the scream tore through the house. The night the world thought Amelia had lost her mind. She threw things, she shouted at invisible enemies, she wept until her voice cracked. "Why, Richard," she screamed. "Why would you betray me? Why?" But to the staff, she sounded mad. To the neighbors, she looked cursed. And Richard, oh, Richard played his role well. With his hand on his chest, he shook his head sadly, saying, "My poor wife, she has gone mad from grief." The servants nodded. The neighbors whispered. But Chike's eyes never left Amelia's. He knew madness when he saw it. And Amelia, this was no madness. This was war. And so, the night Amelia stood barefoot in the living room, glass in her hair and fire in her eyes, the world saw a woman losing her mind. But Chike saw a woman fighting for her life. If only they knew the reason for her madness. The question was, would they ever find out before it was too late? The glass crunched under Amelia's feet as she stood trembling in the middle of the living room. Her chest rose and fell like a drumbeat. Her eyes darted toward Richard, who sat calmly in the leather chair, sipping his drink as though nothing around him mattered. "Please, darling," Richard's voice dripped with honey, "you need rest. Look at yourself. This madness is destroying you." He said it loud enough for the servants to hear. His tone was soft, careful, filled with fake concern. But his eyes were knives cutting into her. Amelia's lips quivered. "You," her voice cracked, "you want me dead." The words slipped out before she could stop them. The room froze. Every servant gasped. Even the cook peeked from the corridor. Richard let out a laugh. Smooth. Cold. Calculated. "My love, listen to yourself. Dead? Me? You see why I've been worried for her, everyone? Grief has taken her mind. Whispers spread like wildfire. She's not well. She has truly gone mad." And just like that, Amelia's truth turned into a lie in their eyes. But Chike's fists tightened by his sides. For weeks, Chike had been watching. He had seen the way Richard's men, strangers in black suits, slipped into the compound at odd hours. He had heard the muffled calls Richard made in the back seat, always cutting the line when Amelia entered the car. Chike was loyal, not to Richard, not even to the estate, but to Amelia and the memory of her late father. Chief Okafor had once told him, "Chike, when I am gone, watch over my daughter. She has a soft heart. Too soft. Protect her, even if she doesn't see the danger." Now those words echoed in his mind. And as he watched Amelia's shaking frame that night, her bare feet bleeding, her voice trembling, Chike made a silent vow. He would uncover Richard's secret. Even if it killed him. Later that night, when the house had grown quiet again and Richard had escorted Amelia upstairs with the fake smile of a perfect husband, Chike moved silently toward the back of the mansion. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of rain. He slipped into the garage, where Richard's phone call earlier still haunted him. Chike's sharp ears had picked out fragments when he was polishing the car earlier that evening. Documents ready. Transfer before the board meeting. She must not survive after. The words weren't clear, but the intent was sharp enough to cut. As Chike leaned against the cold car bonnet, the silence broke. "Why are you always lurking in the shadows, driver?" Chike spun. It was Richard. Standing at the door. Hands in pockets. A smile on his lips, but no warmth in his eyes. Richard walked closer, his shoes clicking against the cement floor. "You're loyal, Chike. Too loyal. To a fault." His smile grew colder. "But you forget your place. You serve. You do not think. You do not question. And you certainly do not watch me." Chike kept his head bowed, but his jaw clenched. "I only serve madam," he said slowly. Richard stopped. For a second, the mask cracked. His eyes hardened. Then, just as quickly, he chuckled. Serve her all you want. It won't matter. Soon, she will be gone. Chike's heart thumped. He dared to raise his head, but Richard was already walking out, his figure swallowed by the dark. The words lingered like poison in the air. Soon, she will be gone. The next day, Amelia was forced to attend a dinner Richard had arranged with business partners. She wore a long red dress, but her eyes carried shadows. She barely touched her food, barely spoke. On the way back, she sat in the back seat with Richard beside her, smiling and laughing with the guest's jokes still echoing in his mouth. But when they arrived home, Richard left quickly to take a call, leaving Amelia alone in the driveway with Chike. She stepped out of the car slowly, her hands trembling as she clutched her gown. Chike, her voice cracked, barely a whisper, I'm not mad. Their eyes met. For the first time, she saw it, the fire in his. He believed her. And in that moment, when footsteps echoed behind them and Richard's shadow fell long across the driveway, Chike did something reckless. Something dangerous. He leaned forward and kissed her. Not out of passion, not out of desire, but out of desperation. Because Richard had turned back and was staring. And the kiss was the only way Chike could cover the trembling fear in Amelia's face. The sound of Richard's slow clap echoed through the night. Well, well, he drawled, his smile sharp. My wife, and the driver. How very interesting. Amelia's heart froze. Chike's jaw tightened. The trap had been sprung. The slap came before Amelia could even breathe. Richard's palm connected with her cheek so hard that she staggered back, her lips splitting. The echo of it bounced off the walls of the mansion courtyard. Chike stepped forward instantly, his voice sharp, Sir. Shut up. Richard barked. You dare touch my wife? You filthy driver? Amelia pressed her hand against her burning cheek, tears welling in her eyes, not just from pain, but from terror. She wanted to scream the truth, to tell everyone standing there that this man was not her savior, but her curse. But the guards had come out now, drawn by the noise. And Richard's performance began. Look at what she's become, he shouted, pointing at Amelia like she was a stain. She's lost her mind. She's sneaking around with a driver, under my roof. The guards froze, unsure who to believe. Chike clenched his fists. Sir, that's not true. You kissed her. Richard snapped, voice full of controlled fury. I saw it with my own eyes. Or are you denying that too? Chike's throat tightened. He couldn't deny it, it had happened, even if it wasn't what it looked like. Amelia's lips trembled. Richard, please. But before she could finish, Richard turned to the guards. From tonight, he's fired. I don't want to see him near this house again. Do you understand? The guards nodded hesitantly. Throw him out. They dragged Chike toward the gates. He didn't struggle. His eyes remained locked on Amelia's, and in that look, he said everything he couldn't say aloud. She shook her head desperately, tears streaming down her cheeks. Chike, no. But the heavy iron gates slammed shut behind him with a final clang. The night swallowed him. Amelia sank to her knees on the marble floor, sobbing quietly as Richard stood behind her, his expression unreadable. Then he crouched beside her and whispered into her ear. You think anyone will believe you now? You're a madwoman, Amelia. A cheating madwoman. And soon, you'll lose everything your father left you. His words were venom. Slow. Cold. Deadly. She shivered. Richard smiled, stood up, and walked away, humming softly to himself. Outside the mansion, rain began to fall. Chike stood by the roadside, drenched, staring at the glowing lights of the house he'd sworn to protect. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, to save himself. But Chief Okafor's voice echoed again in his mind. Protect her, Chike. Even when she doesn't know she needs it. He couldn't leave her to that monster. So instead of going home, Chike circled around the estate, finding shelter under the tall almond trees by the fence. He watched the windows, noting where Richard's office light glowed deep into the night. Something was happening in that room. He could feel it. Through the rain, he saw two dark figures enter the office. They weren't guards, he recognized neither of them. One of them carried a black folder. The other placed something small and metal on the desk. A gun. Chike's blood ran cold. Inside, Richard poured himself another drink. The two men in black stood silently. So it's settled, Richard said, swirling his glass. She signs the documents tomorrow morning, and then, you take care of it. Understood, sir, one of the men replied. No trace? None. Richard smiled faintly, his reflection cold in the glass window. The world already thinks she's unstable. Her death will be an unfortunate accident. He took a long sip of his drink. And the company will finally be mine. Amelia barely slept that night. Every sound, every shadow made her flinch. Her heart raced as she sat on the floor by the bed, clutching her father's old wristwatch, the only thing that gave her courage. She whispered to herself, he won't win. He can't. But her voice broke halfway through. She was alone. Everyone believed she was insane. Even the maids avoided her now, whispering behind her back. Then. A soft knock on the window. She gasped and turned. It was Chike. Soaking wet, mud-stained, but alive. Her heart leapt. She rushed to open the window. Chike, how did you? He pressed a finger to his lips. Shoo. They can't know I'm here. Madam, you're in danger. She blinked, her voice shaking. I know. He's planning something. Chike nodded grimly. He's meeting two men tomorrow morning. He wants you to sign documents that'll give him control of your father's company. And after that, they plan to make sure you never wake up again. Amelia's hand flew to her mouth. Her worst fear, confirmed. What do we do? She whispered, her voice trembling. Chike looked around before speaking. I'll get you out. But we must act like everything is normal until morning. No crying. No panic. Let him think he's winning. Her lips quivered. And then? He met her eyes. Then we disappear before he can touch you. The next morning, the mansion was strangely calm. Richard sat at the dining table, smiling as Amelia walked in. He looked at her like a hunter watching his prey walk into the trap. Ah, my love, he said smoothly, you look better today. I told the lawyer to prepare some documents for your father's estate. You just need to sign and rest. After that, I'll take care of everything. Amelia forced a weak smile. Thank you, Richard. Chike's words echoed in her head like a drumbeat. Act normal. Act normal. The papers were spread neatly across the table. Amelia picked up the pen with trembling fingers. Her eyes darted to the door. Chike was supposed to signal her when the car was ready outside. But there was no sign yet. Richard leaned forward. Go on, darling. Sign. Her hand hovered over the paper. Her heart pounded so hard it echoed in her ears. Then. A voice from the doorway. Sir, one of the guards interrupted, someone's in the car outside. Richard froze. Amelia's pulse spiked. The trap had just exploded. Richard turned slowly toward her, his smile gone. What car? Amelia's mouth went dry. She couldn't answer. He stood, the mask of calm finally slipping from his face. You planned this, didn't you? He grabbed her wrist, squeezing so hard she cried out. "Who's outside, Amelia?" And just as he raised his hand again, the front door burst open. Chike charged in.